Far inside a snow-choked forest forgotten by time, a sound cut through the storm that had no business being there. A train horn echoed through the night, low, stretched, and wrong. Graham Kincaid, a Navy SEAL forced into mandatory leave, paused as the wind howled through the Idaho pines. Silence had become his enemy since the war ended. It always came louder than gunfire. Beside him stood Rook, his German Shepherd partner of 7 years. The dog's posture shifted instantly, ears sharp, body tense, eyes locked toward the darkness beyond the cabin walls. Rook was no pet. He was trained, disciplined, and bonded through years of combat and survival. When Rook reacted, Graham listened. Graham had retreated to this isolated cabin to disappear for a while. The Navy called it rest. He called it exile. The cabin, half buried in snow and forgotten by maps, had once served as a surveillance blind during a classified operation. Now it was meant to be a refuge. But refuge never lasted. The horn sounded again, closer this time. Graham's instincts snapped awake. The rail line nearby ran once a week, Wednesday afternoons. This was neither Wednesday nor afternoon. Storm or not, something was wrong. He layered up, checked his gear, and grabbed his flashlight with the red lens. Tools, not weapons, at least that was the lie he told himself. He rested his hand briefly on Rook's neck, grounding himself in the warmth of something still real. "All right," he murmured. "Let's see what doesn't want to be found." They slipped into the storm together, snow swallowing their tracks almost instantly. Trees blurred past as the wind screamed like something alive. The deeper they moved, the louder the sound became, steel grinding against rail, vibrating through the frozen earth. At the edge of the tree line, the tracks appeared like dark scars slicing through white. Graham dropped behind a fallen pine just as a single headlight rounded the bend. And then he saw her. A woman lay bound across the rails, snow clinging to her jacket and hair. She wasn't moving. As the train thundered closer, Graham's chest tightened, not fear but certainty. This wasn't an accident. Rook moved first. Graham followed without hesitation. Rook clamped down on the restraints at the woman's wrists, jaws working fast and precise. Graham hit the ground beside her, hooking his arms beneath her shoulders as the train roared toward them. She was lighter than expected, too light. Snow burned against his knees as he dragged her free. The bindings snapped. Rook freed her ankles just as the train blasted past, wind slamming into them with brutal force. Graham curled around her instinctively, shielding her as steel screamed inches away. Then it was gone. Silence crashed down like a lie. She was breathing, shallow but alive. Graham checked her pulse. Fast, weak, hypothermia and shock. A police badge flashed against her jacket, confirming what his gut already knew. She hadn't been abandoned. She'd been placed. The train slowed. Voices carried faintly through the storm. Someone had seen something. Decision came instantly. Graham lifted her into his arms and moved for the trees. Rook stayed tight at his side as flashlights pierced the forest behind them. Shouts followed. The first man went down silently, authority without skill. Graham caught him before he hit the ground and dragged him into the snow. A gunshot cracked the night, splintering bark inches from Graham's head. Rook charged, forcing the shooter back. Panic replaced confidence. The man slipped, fled, vanished into the trees. Graham didn't chase. He misdirected instead, breaking branches, doubling tracks, letting the storm erase everything. By the time they reached the cabin, the woman's body was dangerously cold. Graham wrapped her in blankets, lit the stove, and worked methodically. Rook took position by the door, unmoving. At dawn, she woke screaming. Her hands found a pistol. Fear ruled her eyes. Rook stepped between them, calm but unyielding. Graham raised his hands slowly. "You're safe," he said quietly. The gun slipped from her fingers. She collapsed into sobs. Her name was Lena Marlowe. County police. And the men who tried to kill her were still out there. As the fire crackled, Lena told Graham everything. She had uncovered a drug operation hidden inside an abandoned lumber mill, chemicals, shell companies, transport routes. And behind it all stood one name, Sheriff Hollis Crane. Crane had listened, pretended to help, then betrayed her. Men were waiting when she arrived. They beat her for the evidence. When she refused to hand it over, Crane chose the rails. Before they dragged her away, Lena threw the memory card into the snow near the mill. It held everything. "They'll be looking," Graham said. "Then we get it first," Lena replied. Graham left her armed and hidden, trusting Rook to track the scent. The mill rose from the snow like a skeleton. 2 guards patrolled, nervous, untrained. Graham neutralized one. Rook drove the other away without a sound. They found the card buried near a collapsed wall. Relief was brief. Lights flared. More men. Organized this time. Graham and Rook vanished into snow and shadow, burying themselves beneath a drift as searchlights swept overhead. Breath slowed. Muscles burned. The men passed close enough to hear boots crunch stone. Then they were gone. Extraction was slow. Painful. But successful. Back at the cabin, Lena took the card with shaking hands. The truth had survived. They headed to a ranger station for help. Evan Cole, an old friend, understood instantly. He locked the doors, shuttered windows, and called for extraction. Crane arrived instead. Gunfire shattered the station. Graham took a bullet to the shoulder. Smoke filled the air. Rook stood guard, daring anyone to cross the threshold. Then the sound came, rotor blades. Crane fled into the storm as helicopters descended. Whether he fell or vanished, the forest kept its answer. Graham woke in a hospital bed, pain dull but present. Lena sat beside him, exhausted but steady. Rook rested at his feet, bandaged but alert. Investigators came. The memory card dismantled everything: bribes, buried murders, corruption stretching back decades. Lena's father's death was reopened and finally named for what it was: murder. Winter loosened its grip on the mountains. Truth replaced silence. On the day Graham was discharged, sunlight filtered through the pines. Lena helped him into his jacket. "Where will you go?" she asked. "Not far," he replied. Sometimes miracles don't arrive as thunder. Sometimes they arrive quietly, in a man who listens when something feels wrong, a dog who refuses to look away, and the courage to stand when walking away would be easier. The storm passed. The truth remained.